Hey everybody, it's Dr. William Clark here for Leadership Conversations. This is the show where we talk about leadership according to the world that matters to you. I wanted to come on quickly talk about it's your turn to lead. Now what? Now the inspiration for this particular podcast comes from a story from the sports world that kind of hit the news a couple days ago as of this recording. And it's a story about comments Kyrie Irving made about LeBron James. And ultimately, according to ESPN.com, the headline is Kyrie apologized to LeBron James for not appreciating his leadership. And if you don't know anything about the story and the context of their relationship, Kyrie was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers a number of years ago. And of course, LeBron was their first left to go to Miami Heat and decided to come back. And by the time he came back, Kyrie was there as a superstar. And LeBron brought with him all of his LeBronness, right? His greatness, the media, the media exposure, the following by the fans, the business deals, everything LeBron James is, he brought that back to Cleveland, and this really was it was imposing on Kyrie. And just to kind of share context of this, from a world that may be relevant to you, it's almost like you started at a job, you became the new superstar on the job, and then someone who used to be a superstar came back to take a residence in the same building or facility and just sucks the oxygen away from you, takes away all the energy from you, all of the accolades and attention away from you, and now you're feeling some type of way about it. Now, the other part of this story is, Kyrie was young and he was, developing as obviously a basketball player, and was and still is very, very good. And he was also developing as a man, and so at that age, in his early 20s, coming to his own. And for those of us that have been there, we totally get it. We've been there, done that. We know what that feels like. We get it from Kyrie's perspective. And to have someone impose themselves, not intentionally, but just still, it was imposing to have a large figure like that come upon you at that age. It can be difficult to manage and to navigate. And so, according to Kyrie, back then, he didn't necessarily pay attention or he didn't value all the leadership tools that LeBron was providing to not only him, but all the young and inexperienced players on the Cleveland Cavaliers at that time, during his tenure there, second tenure there. And so Kyrie now on the Boston Celtics, he's doing pretty well this season, and he was experiencing a rough patch with the team and came out, made some public comments, and had to retract them and said, I apologize. But then ultimately, as he retracted those comments, he shared with the press that he called LeBron to say, hey, I'm sorry, man, for how I acted several years ago when I was still maturing and you were trying to help me. And Kyrie's perspective of sharing that is, man, I get it now. I get what it feels like to lead and to be the de facto leader or perceived leader of a team, of whether in this case it's a sports team, in this case of you watching this podcast, it may be a team within your business or organization. And he's saying, yeah, I get it. I get what it feels like to lead and have people not pay attention or not value what you're saying. And I wanted to briefly talk about, you wanted to lead so bad. Now what? Now, what are you going to do when your chance comes? What are you going to do when the opportunity presents itself for you to lead a team of people towards a goal, to march up the mountain of difficulty and say, I'm going to stake claim here at the top of this mountain and achieve our goals as a team, as a business, etc. And it's easy to say in the back seat, I woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's easy to say he should, she should do this, right? When you're not necessarily privy to all the information that person is dealing with and navigating. What I've learned about leadership is that oftentimes leaders they're judged based upon what people see and how people experience them. But leaders are also wrestling with real-time data and information that they cannot share with their team members because of proximity, responsibility, etc. And as a result, leaders are perceived in many cases of making decisions that may not be, quote, in the best interest of the team. And those quotes come from people sitting in the back seat, or people who are jealous or envious, or people who just don't understand and are not mature enough to understand. And it's not until people who have so much to say are promoted to a leadership role and they find out, wow, I get it now. I understand why so-and-so used to do this and say this and move like this and make decisions like this. I totally get it now because, I am now experiencing the same thing. And, uh, in my own leadership, I have discovered that in many cases. I have discovered that, yeah, there are opportunities to do things differently because I'm a different person. I see the world a little differently than some of my predecessors. But, you get an appreciation for what people went through, even if you don't agree still. As you take on leadership role, you still may not agree with what your predecessors did, but it gives you an appreciation for what they did, how they did, why they did, and the context with which all of that was taking place. So, I think this story, was really important for sports, and you can listen to all the sports pundits share their perspective about this, and, you can judge whether you agree with their assessment or not. But I think this story was important because it is a relatable story for many of us. Those of you who are emerging leaders, you're coming up the ranks and you got your eye on the prize and you're judging your managers and leaders now. Look, don't stop judging, right? But judge and assess with as much context as you possibly can. Another piece of advice I'll give you is if you're going to assess and make judgment calls about what people should or shouldn't be doing in their leadership role, and if you have a fond relationship with that person, then I encourage you to sit down with that person on a one-on-one basis, get to know them, get to share your thoughts with them, and ask them a million questions about why they are doing what they're doing. Now, you may not get the full story, so understand that. You may not get all context because some information is not relevant for your ears or relevant for your position at this moment in time. But the nuggets that will be shared with you in that one-on-one, the information that will be given to you during that one-on-one, I encourage you to eat it all up, not to cast judgment, not to look at them funny and say, see, you're a terrible leader, but utilize the information to help you understand why this person why do they do what they do? Why have they done what they've done? Why have they acted this way? Why have they said these things? Why did they make these changes? Start to put the pieces of the puzzle together so you can understand why. Even if you still disagree, it is healthy. It's a healthy practice to understand the why of the decisions other people make. Why? Because as you lead teams, you're going to have to be a master of understanding the key question of why. Why did you do what you do during that point in time? I hope this is helpful. I encourage you to look up the soundbite of Kyrie, releasing his comments about why he called LeBron. Look at some of the analysis from a sports perspective, and even on the sports pundit shows, you may even get some insight from them about leadership and about what that means and how someone like LeBron, who has taken on a lot of that responsibility, has done a favor for a lot of people who are not created or strong enough to be leaders to that magnitude. LeBron represents someone who is leading on a whole nother level. He has a lot of things going on, a lot of expectations, and he's managing it all pretty well. And that is a precedent that is being set before our very eyes. But it's no different in other industries. It's no different than the business that you're involved in. It's no different in the life that you have. So you may be in that position where you may be the chosen one, right? The king. And you're the one who has to lead one day, right? Until your opportunity comes, lead where you are. Learn what you can, ask a million questions, and do your best not to judge. It's not worth it because there will be a moment in your life where you will get promoted, people will judge you, and you're going to have to deal with it, right? So when it's your time to lead, now what? That's the question. I hope you find this quick podcast helpful. If you like what you hear, share, subscribe to Facebook, Instagram TV, Twitter, and YouTube, and through your favorite podcasting platform. This is Dr. William Clark for Leadership Conversations, and we'll see you in the next show.